Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching this weekly Ag Weather Update brought to you by the Farm Credit Associations of North Carolina. I'm going to start off with the way by which we like to look at the weather data. This is a surface observation map, and it's valid this morning here on Monday. And one of the things we've been dealing a lot with over the last few days that's kept us kind of cooler is we have this large area of high pressure way to the north, and therefore the flow has been coming across the Carolinas, mostly out of the northeast. It's been relatively light, but what that does is it kind of pushes up against the Appalachian Mountains. It prevents some warmer conditions getting back into our area. We're going to continue to see, I think, this type of flow through the beginning of this week as we're all waiting on this massive storm system that just came off the Rocky Mountains to start to move across the country. It's going to take its dear sweet time to do that. So let me give you some kind of just background information here quickly. Since the last 30 days has gone by, we're looking here at precipitation ranks by climate districts. And this map is going to look very different once we get this system moving across the country, especially parts of the northern plains getting into the Midwest. One place that's going to continue to stay very dry, though, is going to be right here in this part of the western and high plains where we grow a lot of hard red winter wheat. And these systems, as they've come into the west, even though it looks drier here, we are well above normal on snowpack in California, which is an excellent sign going into this upcoming winter. Now, we have one big system that's going to roll through in the next 4 to 5 days. And so after that, we're going to take a look at what the pattern's going to do for the remainder of the month. We're going to talk about January, even look at the new long-range winter forecast, and talk about La Nina at the end of this. Plus, I'll give you an important update about South America. But what I'll be watching this entire winter, as I've stated many times, is what this particular map is going to look like. This is our latest U.S. drought monitor, and what it's showing here is that we still have about 78% of the land area in the lower 48 in some form of drought. Now, the upcoming storm system is going to work hard on helping to eliminate some of the drought that's in parts of the Midwest, the Tennessee Valley, the lower Mississippi River Valley, and then over to the East Coast. I'll show you the rainfall totals in a moment, but the bigger picture is how sustainable is this pattern? Will it continue? And I want to talk to you about that in a second here. The weekend rainfall totals here, mostly it was due to the system that came into the west, very heavy precip here, but then this big subtropical ridge that sat right here. So that's where most of your rainfall was. Why we didn't get much in the Carolinas was largely due to the presence of that higher atmospheric pressure. But the system that dove into the west is now beginning to emerge in the central plains with our blizzard warnings, winter storm warnings, and it's still going to be 4+ days before this system even gets close to us. So we've got a long way to go watching this system to see when it's finally going to get to our part of the country. This is what it looks like tomorrow. So this is just getting into the 13th. It's still sitting here in the Central Plains of the United States. And it's overall cut off from the main flow, so it's just going to sit here and occlude and slowly move toward the northeast. And as it does so, produce some very strong winds, very cold conditions on the backside of it. That's going to be a big part of our forecast. Is the major temperature change happening at the end of this month here, and then until it gets here, though, I mean, we're just dominated by high pressure. See that? That's all high pressure sitting between these two lows. So that's where we're going to be getting a lot of this week. Flow out of the northeast and cool. There will be some severe weather starting tonight in the plains, moving tomorrow into the lower Mississippi River Valley, and then by Wednesday down here in the Gulf Coast. But we won't possibly see the chances for storms over us until late this week, getting out there Thursday into that Thursday time frame. So what do we deal with in the in-between? Well, over the next 72 hours, there is the risk, due to that cold air damming, that we could possibly get a little bit of ice. Now, mostly it'll be in Virginia, the Appalachian Mountains in through here, but we could start to see some of that pushing up against the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains here. Otherwise, though, this is not, this isn't a significant. I just want to make you aware that this system does have the ability to do that, given the kind of the backdoor cold front coming in out of the north and east at this point. So from here, will we get any snow out of this? Because the temperatures will be dropping off like a rock behind it. So just taking you all the way out to next Sunday, this is the forecast for total accumulated snowfall. So you do notice that there will be some that comes through the Appalachian Mountains down here, but most of the heavier snows are, of course, going to be in New England, where the temperatures will be cold enough as this big upper level low just occludes in those areas. So this is what it looks like 2 days from now. So, I mean, I'm recording this Monday morning. It's still 2 days from now, the upper level low sitting and spinning here is 3, actually. 1, 2, 3. And they're all cut off from the main flow, which is still quite weak. And all of that basically boils down into a lot more north-south flow rather than west to east. And it's just going to take a while for this system to come across the United States. So we better figure out the timing of this. We're going to go right here to the high-res NAM model just to get an idea. And so you're going to notice that as I play through the rest of the day on Monday, getting into Tuesday, getting into Tuesday afternoon and evening, and working our way eventually toward Wednesday morning. That's 3 days, and this whole system just, 2.5 days, barely moved. And the upper level front, which is out ahead of this, which is lining up with the surface cold front down here in the lower Mississippi River Valley, will be trying to advance toward the Appalachian Mountains by Wednesday evening. But again, this whole system just real slow mover as it curls up in the midsection of the country. Now, it's going to be a major disruptor. We're going to have heavy, heavy snows on the backside of this. Some places between western Nebraska, South Dakota, and North Dakota are going to pick up 18 inches plus of snowfall. There'll be some ice out ahead of it, and then heavy rain moving through the Midwest, which is good. We need this moisture to return. The severe weather threat on Tuesday is down here in the lower Mississippi River Valley. But to pick up from there, I got to switch over to the GFS, which is on the left, and the European, which is on the right. So when does the rain finally get to us? So this leaves us off where the other model left off. So that's Wednesday afternoon getting into the evening. And what you notice is that by Wednesday evening, the showers and possibly some storms are moving over the Appalachian Mountains. And then getting into the overnight hours and there into Thursday morning, afternoon, and evening, that's when the main front comes over us. So we're looking at about a 30-hour window here where we've got some rain coming late this week. Now that low continues to curl into New England, and we get some colder and drier air coming in behind it for Friday going into Saturday. And that's when we start to see the chances for some snow coming right in here into the Appalachian Mountains. But again, most of that's north of us, of the Appalachian Mountains in North Carolina. But I wanted to make you aware of one thing, and that is next Monday in the European, it is not in the GFS, but in the European, another low is starting to crop up and move over us by next Tuesday. So we need to keep an eye out for that because it's only in one model, it's only in one run, but it's just one of those things I want to keep a pretty close eye on as we go forward. So let's distill all this down into a couple of numbers here. First of all, let's talk precipitation. The WPC has got the coastal regions here at less than 1.5 inches. Most of this area probably seen between 1/2 inch and 1 inch. But then you get into this color shading toward the Appalachian Mountains, really a west to east gradient here. It looks like we could easily pick up in some places more than 1.5 inches of total accumulated precipitation. But it's late this week, and it all depends on the speed of that front. Now, I want to give you some raw numbers from the model as well. So here we are through Tuesday into Wednesday. This is now Wednesday evening, getting into Thursday morning, Thursday midday, Thursday evening, Thursday night. So if we just kind of look at the numbers from this system, you can see that maybe over toward the mountains we get 2 to 3 inches out of this. That's possible. Then the farther east to go, the numbers kind of drop off down there to about 1 inch to possibly getting down there to around 3/4 of an inch. So heaviest rains the farther west we go here. European model kind of honed in on this as well. This is the probability of getting at least 1 inch of rainfall in the next 10 days. So much higher west and a little bit lower to the east, but still quite wet for us here. That's why I think that I should be quite hopeful that we're going to see some major changes in the drought monitor as we go into, the end of this month and start a new year. Okay, where does the pattern end up as we get past Christmas? So Christmas, as we look out that far, it is 14 days away, and you notice that the jet stream wants to pull up these ridges along the west coast, kind of in the Gulf of Alaska, and dive like this. Now, whenever we see a pattern setting up like this, where there's ridges here and there's ridges there, this is all a part of this high latitude blocking scheme we're in right now, and it just tends to drop low pressure into this area that try to move up the coast. So I'm going to tell you, whenever I see this, I know that the models don't pick up on it very quickly, but there is risk of us having a very active storm track from the Gulf Coast up the East Coast, maybe a Miller B that comes in like this. That's a type of storm system. That's all possible out of that pattern going into week 2. I'll just make a case that next Monday's report, as we kind of dig into that, which, by the way, I think that'll be my last report of the year, given where we are with the holiday season. I will be taking off the week between Christmas and New Year's, so just want to make sure you all know that. But I'm just saying that the end of this year could see a very active setup because of these troughs that are sitting right here in this area. Okay, let's talk about the temperature side of it. You're going to see that from Monday into Tuesday, going into Wednesday. We keep that cooler air due to that northeast flow. Very warm sector, a very broad warm sector, opens up. But watch as the system comes at us on Thursday into Friday. That's when the front advances, getting into Saturday and Sunday. Much, much colder air starting to run out here across the country. And the longer range models just leave it around even to start the new year. So the map over there on the left is day 5 through 10. The map on the right is day 10 through 15. Temperatures in the upper Midwest, the northern plains, Canadian prairie could be more than 20 degrees colder than normal during a sustained long time period. And given that big ridges are building here, and one is building over, Hudson Bay to Greenland, that just kind of pinches the cold air and pushes it off in this direction, which is what we're going to continue to see going forward in this forecast. Okay, I wanted to kind of get through the next couple of weeks just to get an idea about this big system coming later this week, the one we might see next Tuesday, and then what the temperatures are going to do, because I want to spend more time talking about what's happening after this. So here we go. CPC released this on Friday. This is their new outlook for December 24th to January 6th. Now you see they've got better chances of us seeing more sustained cold air than warm air. And also you see this more active storm track in this area. So this just tells us that the pattern is likely not going to be slowing down too much as we start this new year. Now, to add to that, this is the newest update from the European model. A little bit longer time frame here, December 20th to January 20th. And again, very active Ohio River Valley, Tennessee Valley. These systems have to roll north and east. So the chances of us being drier from now through most of January is very low, which is good. We want to pack in that moisture now. That's a good thing. But it would be quite cold. And the models have been very kind of dialed in on repeated shots at colder weather coming across here. We certainly see that showing up in the longer range forecast. So good agreement between the European model and the U.S. Center here. From there, I want to talk about La Nina, because right now ocean temperatures right here in Nina region 3.4, where the cursor is, are down below 1 degree below zero. Let me rephrase that. 1 degree below average in terms of their temperature anomalies, not 1 degree below zero. This is very warm water, even though it shows up cold. But this right here, we are likely seeing the peak of La Nina taking place over the next 10 to 15 days. The models have kicked off one more big surge of trade winds being met by stronger westerly wind bursts. And as you can see, this will likely put the MJO right over phase 6, maybe moving it toward phase 7 with time. Now, remember, we have about a week to 10-day lag as to when this happens, which will be around Christmas, and when we get the effect of this. So what I want to show you is, well, if we end up getting at the end of this year into MJO phase 6-7, maybe that means the very end of the year and the start of January will give us a pattern like this. Now, this is MJO phase 6 when there's a La Nina. And there's deeper troughs here that run over a western ridge that then dive out the east. That's an active pattern for us. We have a very weakly, in terms of speed and position, it's very weak, the jet stream coming off of Asia. It just has to get all through this high latitude blocking, and it's not able to do that. Now, what if we go into MJO phase 7 in the month of January? Again, see the ridges happening here? The pattern dives in, and we stay active. And that's why those long-range forecasts from the CPC and from the European model, let's go back and take a look at those real quick. Where are they? There we go. Keep things active kind of in our neck of the woods. So we must watch out for that very closely. Now, I mentioned that I think this La Nina is going to be reaching its peak in the next 15 to 20 days. And I just want to illustrate that the ocean temperatures will be the last thing to respond. So this is saying still 75% chance of La Nina through December, January, February. But remember, it takes 30 to maybe up to 90 days for the ocean temperatures to start to respond to the change in the trade winds. And I think it's going to happen at some point between about December 20th and January 20th. And you notice how quickly the La Nina fades. Neutral conditions take over, which means subseasonal weather variables like the MJO, like northern hemisphere blocking over like the Gulf of Alaska or over Greenland, that's going to take precedence over everything else. And then what I really want to illustrate is that now by next summer, the models have given the highest probability to El Nino developing by next July, August, September. Now, this isn't necessarily a good signal for us. On the East Coast, historically, this correlates with drier risks going into summer. We're going to watch this and keep talking about it all through winter to see how it evolves, because history would say La Nina fade, El Nino build, the risk of drier conditions happening in the eastern United States, especially in the mid-Atlantic. Now, as it stands, let's go right now and look at the brand new data that came out from the NMME, the National Multi-Model Ensemble. I'll look at global sea surface temperatures. Let's just go out there pretty far. This would be April, May, June. You can already see the elimination of La Nina in the forecast. But I'd like to see what they think we're going to get for this winter. So the precipitation rate, I definitely buy into this. I mean, you can see the active pattern into the northwest, systems rolling up here out of the Ohio River Valley, and therefore I think that the model has biased this too dry. I think it's too dry. And I'm going to back that up by showing you the latest European model, which we looked at last week, which illustrates that, see how it's not nearly as dry as the NMME. Very active storm track through here means we're going to see better chances of getting winter precipitation, eliminating the threat, I think, of us having a high probability of going into drought for spring 2023. Okay, I think that's off the table given this setup. But we're going to watch it carefully regardless. So that's my latest thinking on the January, February, March timeframe. From here, I'm going to give you a quick update on South America. You've heard me speak a lot about the drought concerns in Argentina. Over the last 2 months, we've continued to see it get worse from Buenos Aires through Cordoba, Santa Fe, and up north. They grow a lot of wheat and cotton in this area, and it's some of those places it's the driest it's been. Now, there were decent rains that came through over the weekend. Some places got over an inch out of these storms that came through. But the newest forecast is bone dry in this area again. So from Paraguay to Uruguay, Rio Grande do Sul, which is in southern Brazil, into Argentina, just dry. Very, very low chances of seeing more precipitation. Not nearly as hot, though, as last week. But notice to the north of that, very wet throughout Brazil's major growing areas, according to the models, which is going to continue to push that crop toward a very large number. We have not yet seen significant stress on the Brazilian crop this year. So when you start hearing folks tossing around those big numbers like 155 million metric ton of soybeans, the models and the weather we've seen, nothing's pointing toward a reduction in that at this point. They'll start harvesting in Mato Grosso at the end of this month and throughout January and early February, so it's going to go pretty quickly here. One last thing to point out, while we are seeing all this cold air coming out of Canada toward the east over the next 5 to 10 days, there'll also be very cold air trapped here across northern Europe, including northern France, Germany, Poland, okay? Of course, the Scandinavian countries, and there's been heavy snow this past weekend that got as far south as London here in the UK. It's also quite cold along the east coast of Asia. These are major population centers that are all going to have increased heating demand in the northern hemisphere as we go toward the very beginning of astronomical winter, which will start on December 21st. It's also quite cold down in Australia compared to normal over the next 10 days. So just another thing to point out there. So we'll keep our eyes on all of this, and I'll talk to you again next Monday. Until then, have a good rest of your week. Thanks.